Chào mừng các bạn đã đến với The Behind Stories. Mình là Sơn Râu. Nơi đây sẽ là câu chuyện về những khách mời đồng ngành với mình trong mảng truyền thông và sự kiện. Họ sẽ chia sẻ về những hành trình làm nghề vô cùng quý giá. Biết đâu câu chuyện của mình sẽ mở rộng con đường sự nghiệp cho các bạn. So, let's enjoy our stories.
Xin chào tất cả các bạn đã quay trở lại với Sơn Râu Podcast. Thì ngày hôm nay á, là chúng ta sẽ có một vị khách mời mà được quay trở lại với trường quay của tụi mình. Thì anh sẽ là anh Mike. Thì các bạn có thể đã xem những cái tập trước của anh Mike nói về YouTube Pro rồi. Nhưng mà tập này thì sẽ là một cái chủ đề hoàn toàn mới, chủ đề rất là khác biệt. Thì trước đây á, trong cái tập số 3 á, khi mà mình nói chuyện với anh Bảo Khánh á, là một trong những cái founder của On Mic á, thì có một cái thông tin rất là thú vị á, mà anh Khánh anh chia sẻ, đó là người Việt Nam thì cực kỳ ham học. Và theo một số cái nghiên cứu mà mình được biết á, từ bên phía nền tảng của TikTok á, thì trong số tất cả những cái nội dung của TikTok á, thì có đâu đó khoảng hơn 30% đến tầm khoảng 36% nội dung của TikTok nó sẽ liên quan đến education. Vậy thì cái education là một những cái topic mà người Việt chúng ta rất là quan tâm. Nhưng mà một cái câu hỏi của mình đặt ra rằng đó là có quá nhiều content education như vậy, có quá nhiều nội dung về giáo dục như vậy, thì làm sao chúng ta có thể thẩm thấu, chúng ta có thể học được một cách gọi là hiệu quả, một cách nhanh chóng. Thì ngày hôm nay mình mời đến trường quay là anh Mike. Anh Mike đã gặp chúng ta ở trong cái tập trước rồi. Thì tập này anh Mike sẽ quay trở lại để chia sẻ cho các bạn biết về một cái kỹ thuật về hiệu quả cho cái việc mà how to learn everything fast. So welcome back to the studios, Mike. Great to see you again to the studios. So today we're gonna talk about how to learn everything fast. I'm just share with the audience that the Vietnamese we love a lot of educational contents. So educational contents we will consume almost every single day. But the problem is like you will be overflow with that educational contents. But how we keep things and how we learn things very efficient, very productive and fast. Yeah. So today is a topic that we talk about. Yeah.
Yeah, so I started my YouTube channel in 2016, and it's all about personal development, productivity, self-education, learning, and becoming a better person, living a healthier, wealthier, happier life. I started my kind of self-education journey in 2013, and it has completely changed who I am as a person. I've made 500, 600 videos on YouTube on personal development, and I think there's two main, out of all those 600 videos, there's two big things that can grow you faster and kind of develop your life faster. The first one is self-education, so learning things, watching documentaries, listening to podcasts, reading books, that kind of thing. So the first one is self-education. The second thing is networking and meeting people that are 1 year ahead of you, 3 years ahead of you, 5 years ahead of you, meeting people that are maybe very good at something that you're not good at, right? So I'm not the best video editor, so I have video editors, and they help and they fill in that gap. So, self-education and networking, and even networking is in many ways a form of self-education because you're learning from other people. So really, self-education, the number one personal development strategy, in my opinion.
Yeah, but as I shared that we consume a lot of educational contents, but how can we have learning faster, because there's so many contents in the world right now that we want to consume. So can you uncover the mystery of how to get a speed learning technique or the method that you are share on your YouTube channel?
So there's a few components to speed learning, and speed learning is essentially you're just learning faster. It's very important that you're actively learning and you're not passively learning. So actively learning means that you're thinking about the things that you're learning, you're processing them in your mind. The worst type of learning, to give you an example of passive learning, is reading from a thick, heavy, black and white textbook that is just text and text and text. And chances are, if you read that textbook, you're going to forget about 95% of what you're learning. But a more passive way, a more active way of learning would be like how we're talking right now, and then we're engaging and we're actively thinking and processing what we're learning. So that would be a active way of learning. And it's also very important that you have a purpose as well. So being very focused with what you're learning. So what are your goals? And make sure that your learning is focus towards those goals. And that's another reason why I don't like textbooks, because textbooks are so broad. Usually, you know, you might just want to learn one specific thing, but you don't want to read an entire textbook. Again, like meeting people and asking them, okay, how do I do this? How do I do that? It's a lot better. So there's a few different components when it comes to speed learning, but one of the most important is really to actively be thinking and kind of maybe even taking notes and drawing diagrams and processing what you're thinking. Even like podcasts. So podcasts are a relatively passive way of learning, but if you're thinking about the topics that are being taught, if you're writing them down, if you're putting them into action, then that would turn it into an active way of learning.
Yeah. So let's assume that the audience, they are not really like extrovert and really not really good at networking skills, but how can they have the speed learning method to apply for themselves? For example, for the introvert, they don't have a really good skills at speaking to people or networking. So how can...
So content. The content that you consume. So when you're eating dinner, what are you doing, right? Are you watching Friends on Netflix, or are you listening to educational podcasts, right? So, and that's where I started in 2013, because I was a massive introvert. I also wasn't very good at communicating, and so I didn't want to be networking and meeting people. So I started on YouTube. I started, you know, watching people like Gary Vaynerchuk, listening to like the Joe Rogan podcast, and really consuming content and surrounding myself with like the world's greatest people, if you like, and kind of listening to interviews and seeing how they did it and really reverse engineering how they did it. There's a lot you can learn from other people just on the type of content. But also it's important that you consume the type of content that you naturally enjoy doing, right? So for example, there's a famous author, Simon Sinek, and I was listening to his podcast. He was being interviewed by Stephen Bartlett, who's the host of Diary of a CEO. And Stephen asked him, what is the one thing that you're maybe like slightly embarrassed to tell people? And he was like, bear in mind, he's an author. He's written many, many books. He's a very well-known author. He was like, I don't like reading. He just doesn't like reading. He gets bored very easily and he just can't process. And he's like, and that's totally okay. If you don't like reading, that's totally fine. Because I don't love reading. I read probably one book every 2 months. So I consume a lot of content, but it's primarily podcasts, it's primarily YouTube videos. And, you know, for the people at home, it might even be TikTok videos, providing that they're educational. Then it doesn't really matter how you consume, as long as it fits and it's very natural to you. So don't force yourself to be reading books if naturally it doesn't resonate with you and you don't enjoy that process.
I see, I understand that. But in your YouTube channels, you share about one technique you call fast. So can you break down a little bit about that techniques and how it really works with you and how that technique can help other audience as well?
Yeah. I mean, there's many different techniques. So fast is one of them. I think Jim Quick uses it. And I won't go through every single step, but the main premise is that you're just thinking, you're actively thinking about what you're learning. For example, let's say you are reading a textbook. Let's say you're at university and you're reading a textbook, and instead of just reading it, you're taking notes and you're writing down questions. Like maybe something that makes you curious. Maybe something is written that you don't quite understand. So you write them down, you write those questions, and then you go away and then you actively study, you actively learn. So you might go to YouTube and so for example, I was watching a documentary on the Soviet Union, the fall of the Soviet Union, and it was a really interesting documentary. And then like they would talk about things that I didn't quite understand. So I'm like, okay, I will take a note and I will go on YouTube and I will search these things. I will go on Wikipedia. So it's kind of like, again, it's active learning, and you're not just kind of having things given to you and then you're going to soon forget them if you don't process that information.
Yeah, I understand that. But there's a thing that affect me, maybe some audience. When I try to learn something new, I will be overflow with a lot of information. So how to calm my mind to overflow with a lot of knowledge and pick the one that really works with us? Is there any tips about that?
Yeah, so what I have is, so I use Notion, and so but you can use a Word document, you can use Excel, Google Sheets, whatever. But when I learn something that's really, because when you listen to a podcast, when you listen to, let's say a Joe Rogan podcast that's 3 hours long, in that podcast, in a 3-hour podcast, you might get like 15 golden nuggets of information, like things that really resonate with you that you think, oh, I didn't know that. And then what you would do is you would pick the top 3 or 4, and then you would write them down. And I call it a knowledge bank. So I've been doing this for years, and so my knowledge bank is basically a massive list, and it's all categorized in terms of business, psychology, general, and basically I can look back at the last 2 or 3 like big golden nuggets, big powerful things that I've learned. Because if I don't write them down, and if I don't go back to all the things that I've learned over like at least once a month or once every 2 months, then you're soon going to forget them, because at the end of the day our brain is very efficient at forgetting things. And it only remembers the things that are actually important. So if you keep kind of going through your knowledge bank and going through those golden nuggets, then you're going to keep them at the front of your mind. And that's really important for content creators as well. If you're creating content, that you need to be providing value. So the way that you do that is that you consume through podcasts, you process that value, and then you can kind of not regurgitate it, but deliver it in your own perspective, in your own approach, in your own style.
That's great. I would like to deep dive a little bit more about your knowledge bank, because you said it's a knowledge bank. So it's a massive content inside that bank. So how can you access to the one that you're looking for in that particular moment?
Yeah, so I've categorized everything, right? So there's knowledge when it comes to cryptocurrency, like my interests, right? So cryptocurrency, I do boxing, so that's one of the categories. One of the categories is productivity and personal development. One of the categories is business. And so let's say I've come to this podcast and we're going to be talking about content creation, right? Let's say we do an episode on content creation. Then before this podcast, I might go through my knowledge bank, click the categorized content creation, and then all the golden nuggets of content creation will come up. You can do the same to prepare for an interview, for example. If you've been kind of learning about, let's say you've got an interview, let's say you want to be a teacher, and then you've been consuming a lot of content on how to become a good teacher or how to be a professional or an expert in that area, then you would have all those golden nuggets in your knowledge bank. Then just before the interview, you can go through all those golden nuggets so they're at the front of your mind. So in the interview, you can kind of just be pulling them out. And it should make for a more powerful interview.
Yeah, I see. It's like in the Harry Potter movies.
Yeah,
you're pulling down the memories just in front of you and see it in the wealth.
Yeah, because if you don't keep having those memories in the front of your mind, they're soon going to go to the back, and then you're not going to forget. You're going to forget about them.
That's right. So back a little bit about you right now. You are having to different business at a time. You grow your client channels. You also do the productivity class as well. So how you do your time management for managing a lot of like work like that?
Yeah, so I use a process called time boxing. And so firstly for me, the morning, so I'm a morning person and I wake up quite early. I wake up about 5 a.m. And so I get to a coffee shop at 6 a.m. And the first 4 hours of the day, from 6 a.m. until 10 a.m., I block out of my calendar, so no one can, like my team know that in the morning they can't contact me, or I'm very difficult to contact in the morning. They're not going to get replies unless it's urgent. And I protect that 4-hour window like a doctor's appointment, like no one can book appointment in that time. And then I do my most, because I have my most energy at that time, I also do the task that will move the needle more than anything else, right? The most important task of the day for 4 hours, deep work, AirPods in, at a coffee shop, and I'm super focused for that 4 hours. And straight away, you can, like, that's my most productive time for sure. And then I focus about 3 days on one business and then 4 days on the other business. So just so I'm not context switching, so I don't have to context switch, so I can focus the full day on that one business and then the next day. I know that Jack Dorsey, the founder of Twitter, he also does the same thing. He at the time he was interviewed, and at the time he was the CEO of Twitter and also the CEO of Square, and he said the same thing where he time boxes and he has one day for one company and then the second day for that company, for the next company. And I think that's quite an effective way.
Yeah, I see. But I think it's different with Elon Musk because I think he has 48 hours a day.
He seems like he has 48 hours a day. I'm not sure. Like one of the ways that he has so much time is he delegates everything, right? So he doesn't do any cleaning. He doesn't he has a private jet, so he doesn't have to wait at airports. He really has mastered time management, even to the point where it gets. Like, I wouldn't recommend this, like, it's not healthy for the normal person, but, like, he sleeps at his office so that he doesn't have to, and then he buys an apartment right next to the office, so his commute is, like, 30-second walking. Like, that's the extremes that he goes to. Like I say, I wouldn't recommend it for most people, but there's almost an art to time management.
Yeah, I see. So you also do a lot of like YouTube contents during the times. So how can, because you have two business and you separate the days, but how about the weekends? Are you still working or you have some balancing with your more life?
Yeah, so years ago I used to work 7 days a week, and I wouldn't know whether it was a weekend or weekday, because the weekdays and weekends would be exactly the same. Which on the one hand is not bad, because that's how much I love working. In that I love working as much as I do hanging out with friends, which is a pretty good place to be. However, these days I make sure that I still work on a Sunday, but I will just work for 2 hours, maybe 3 hours, and then the rest of the day I will make sure that my rest time is productive rest time, in that, like, I'll be playing tennis with friends, I'll be going boxing, I'll be going swimming, I'll be doing traveling. So I'll be doing something productive. Or healthy rather than productive. And then on Saturday, I'll still work on Saturday, but I'll work fewer hours, and I'll also do more tasks that I enjoy doing. So, like, no deep work tasks, no writing, because I don't particularly love writing, but I'll be doing tasks that are more creative, that I really like doing. And I do a lot of meetings on Saturday as well, again, because I enjoy them. And so Monday to Friday is like deep focus, and then Saturday is like, okay, chill out, do the task, the work that you like doing, and then Sunday, just 2 hours of work, and then you chill out the rest of the day.
I see. So when I watched your short videos about a 30-day challenge to writing the books, I almost go through every single videos that you share about your experience and your journeys. So how do you, because some of videos that kept me attention because you meet the writer blocks. It blocks your writings or your contents. It's not like overflows in other days. So how you can deal with that and how you overcome that?
Honestly, artificial intelligence has been amazing for writer's block. So I'm using ChatGPT. I'm using a few different programs, but ChatGPT is like the one that most people know. And the free version, I've used the paid version as well, but I stopped the subscription because the paid version is just so incredible already. Writer's block is amazing for if you don't know what you want to write. You can type into ChatGPT, give me 5 ideas on productivity that are very powerful that I can then expand upon. And then it'll give you 5 ideas, and then you can then just expand on them. So I think ChatGPT was like my best friend when doing that 30-day challenge.
I see. I think he or she is going to be my best friends in the next few years as well.
Yeah. But I also think that it's important not to have ChatGPT write for you, but it's more of an idea prompt. It's more of like the ideation process. Because if you get ChatGPT to write for you, it's still not at a stage where it can give you like really good writing. And when you're producing content, you can't just be like the other 1,000 people that are also trying to write content. You've really got to level it up. So yeah, ChatGPT is more for the ideation as opposed to the actual writing itself.
I see. So what is for right now you using ChatGPT as a tool, but what is like a personal skill set that you can leverage to like level up your content?
Like I say, content consumption is a big thing in terms of, because at the end of the day, there's no new ideas, right? So the content that the algorithm 2023's YouTube algorithm is a lot more competitive than it was last year, meaning that you can't kind of regurgitate the same content that every other social media or every other YouTuber is creating, meaning that you've really got to set yourself apart. So it's like, okay, how do you set yourself apart? You can build off of other people's ideas. So for example, if you learn something from a podcast and it really resonates with you, like I mentioned, you write it down in your knowledge bank, and then you can use that in your video, but then you build upon it. Like you add your own spin on it, you add your own stories to it. A lot of content creation is is adding your own stories, anecdotes, examples, because people watch YouTube channels because of you. And so like adding your own personality. It's like if you look at my YouTube channel, if you look at my videos, I talk about myself a lot in the titles. Like I say like how I built this business, how I overcame procrastination, how I did this, how I did that, because people are watching my channel because of me, because they want to hear my examples and my stories. So yeah, that's really important, like using your own examples, your own stories, that kind of thing.
Okay, and I currently get that. So there's a thing that I wanted to asking about the learning method and about the optimizing the time management for you. Do you like setting the entire times or the goal for you for the whole years, and then you break it down into months and days or weeks, and how you can do that to make sure that you are achieving the goal?
Yeah, so it depends on the person really. So I used to do that a lot, like 5, 6, 7 years ago. I used to do that a lot. I would have a yearly plan. I have a business partner that has a 30-year plan. So
what, 30-year plans?
30-year plan. So the next 10 years, he's got a plan. Like he's got a main goal for that. Then the second 10 years, he's got a goal for that. The third, and it's like I've tried planning it a year ahead, but things change so much, right? So if I plan for the next year, I know that I'm not going to hit that goal, not because I didn't achieve it, but because the path has changed or something has happened, or I achieved that goal like way earlier. And so what I focus more on is not goals, but systems, meaning that a system for me, for example, as I mentioned, is going to the coffee shop and working on the single most important task that will move the needle more than anything else. That for me is a system because I'm doing it every day. And if I do that system every single day, then I'm going to hit that goal, right? Because at the end of the day, even if you have a goal, you still need to have a strategy, you still need to have a system in order to hit that goal. Yeah. So I'm really focusing on the everyday. What can I do today that will move the needle more? And then the same tomorrow, the same the day after that.
Yeah. There's a myth about the 10,000 hours. I think it's been written by Malcolm Gladwell as well. Mm-hmm. So is it from your experience and from you are already mastering the YouTube content, only do the productivities, and is it for you? Is it true? And how do you feel about that myth?
Yeah, I mean it's very vague. I think sometimes it can take less, sometimes it can take a lot more. I think it's very important though, from a business perspective, to become really good at just one thing, right? So there's this thing called a talent stack where, like, if you know me, you know that I'm good at two things. Like you asked me before this podcast, what can I talk about? I said I can talk about two things. I can talk about personal development, or I can talk about YouTube growth. Like that's what I'm known for, that's what I'm good at, and that's what I'm really trying to become the best that I can become. And then So that for me is like my 10,000 hours, like that's what I've been working on. And then there's a talent stack, meaning that you have the smaller skill sets around that, right? So for example, with YouTube growth, I know a lot about YouTube growth, but my talent stack below that would be, okay, I'm okay at sales, I'm okay at marketing, I'm okay at networking and meeting people, I'm okay at speaking, I do a few speaking gigs. And so you're building that main talent stack, so that might be a 10,000 hours, that main talent, but then you have supplementary skill sets that are working, and then that whole skill set, that should give you that competitive advantage. I think Peter Thiel, also one of the co-founders of PayPal, he wrote a book called The One Thing, and he talks about how you should really be focusing on that one thing to give you a competitive advantage, and not necessarily relying on the formal education system, so like university and school, because at the end of the day, university or school, they're teaching the students the same thing in the same way. So it's like, how can you have a competitive advantage if you're being taught the same thing in the same way? And that's where self-education comes in that you can learn your own things. It's more interesting. You're not set to a curriculum. You can kind of follow your curiosity, and it will give you a competitive advantage over all the other people that are not taking advantage of self-education.
Okay, I understand. So that's, I think that's a very interesting perspective about the one thing that the book. I think and I read that book sometimes.
Yeah, and I think it's also important for I know most of your audience are Vietnamese, and I think it's a very important thing where, because we've hired many interns over the last few years, and one of the things that we see is that formal education is good. So like going to university is good, going to school and getting good grades is good, but you also need to be learning yourself. You also need real world experience. You also need to be reading books. You need to be listening to podcasts. You need to be learning from people that are way higher than you, like watching YouTube videos, for example. So formal education is good, but please take advantage also of self-education as well.
Because we are talking about the learnings, there is a curious within me for about the last 2 weeks. I would like to ask you and what you think about it. Between the AI and between the human, I believe AI can learn things faster than us. But how can we differentiate ourselves between ourselves with the machine? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree with you. AI can, because at the end of the day, when a baby human is born, they're reset. They're like at 0, and they've got to learn a lot more. Whereas with AI, it's like straight away you can download almost unlimited information, and it's just going to get more and more exponentially more powerful each year that goes by. I think that AI, it's very important that we start using AI straight away, in that we implement it into our work lives, into our work lives. Meaning, it's similar to when computers in the 70s and 80s started becoming quite popular in offices, and you could do 2 things. You could either be kind of like a bit afraid of computers, or like think that they're too complicated and not utilize them, or you could jump on that opportunity and become very competent with using a computer back in the 80s and 90s, and then that would give you a competitive advantage. And that's also why I really encourage students particularly to start using ChatGPT. Even if you don't necessarily need it every day, just start using it and get used to using it and see where it can improve your life. Because if you go to an employer and then you can kind of utilize ChatGPT to become more productive, then that's a massive competitive advantage that you're having. So I think that humans, we really need to be working alongside AI. I think that's really important, because if we don't, then we're going to get left behind.
Yeah, there is the questions. My families, especially my aunt, when they raise kids, they always ask me what to study, what to learn, which area that they're focusing on right now. So what jobs they can make, where they can find in the futures. I said that's the first thing you should know right now. You should know about the AI. Your kids right now, they're in grade 10, 11 or 12. They should know about AI. They should aware of that AI, and they should know how to use it in the very first. And you're gonna see the magic of AI can help you so much more.
Absolutely, it's like the industrial revolution in the late 1800s. And how just having tractors and steam-powered tractors completely transformed how we farm land. And that was in the late 1800s. And then the same thing happened with computers in the 70s and 80s. And then a similar thing happened in 2004 with social media. And we're seeing the same transition with AI. And it's like, imagine making a Facebook account in 2005, 2006, and started to grow a Facebook following in 2006. Imagine how many millions of followers you'd have right now. AI is not going anywhere. Like, AI is here to stay. AI is not like cryptocurrency where there's more controversy, and particularly with NFTs, 2 or 3 years ago, it was like, are NFTs a fad, or are they staying for good? Like, AI is not like NFTs. AI is like, it is here. And it's almost certain that it's going to revolutionize our work life, our life, everyday life, really.
Yeah. So as what you see, what is your, I'm not saying forecast, what you're looking into the futures right now. So what makes the humans is going to be different between human and the AI? Because I think in the next 10 or 20 years, the knowledge from AI is going to become the commodities. It's more popular and you can access to it more, and especially our kids, our children will be access it more. It's easier accessible. So what truly makes us different?
I think the people that are going to come there's going to be winners and there's going to be losers when it comes to how AI is kind of taking over jobs and things like that. So anything kind of repetitive, I think AI is really going to replace. I think also just basic things like, for example, this we have a TV here. Like we won't, like a physical TV is just not necessary, right? We could just have like pixels on the wall. Right? Why would we have a physical TV that takes up so much space? We could have like just pixels on the wall. It's the same like laptops. It's the same like computers. Like you have a tablet here. It's a physical tablet. Like why would you have a physical tablet? And I think augmented reality particularly is going to become, is going to replace everything to the point where even I feel like we're going to have contact lenses that we can just put on, and then it will completely change, and then we'll essentially have virtual reality, but in contact lenses. And like right now, virtual reality, you've got to use big goggles, and then the headsets, they only last for like 30 or 40 minutes. But if you think how much virtual reality has come the last 10 years, and then if you think how much virtual reality is going to advance in the next, not just 10 years, but in the next 100 years, in the next 500 years, I think it's going to be absolutely incredible. But at the end of the day, like AI is going to change how we operate every day, and we really need to we need to be careful, of course, because AI can be like genuinely dangerous. If you think like if we have robots that have their own minds that can think consciously,
it's like Terminators.
Exactly, and it's like are more powerful than us, that are stronger than us. And it's like, okay, how do we, like, I'm talking like in 500 years time, right? Not in the next 10 years, but in the next 500 years time, 1,000 years time. It's similar to nuclear bombs, right? When like we have bombs that can wipe out half of the world, which is absolutely insane. And I think, you know, AI is going to be similar in as well, like having robots and having AI fighting wars for us, so humans don't have to fight wars, right? Those kind of things, I think, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, but it's no longer our reality.
Yeah.
It's already finished. So I think we're gonna come to gonna sum up the last questions. So every single thing I want to summarize this one. So it's because we're still back to the reality right now. We need to consume a lot of educational contents. So can you just giving the summary of your best advice? 1, 2, 3 advice that given on the audience how to learn things faster.
So the single biggest thing that changed my life. So I was very unmotivated, very uninspired when I was at high school. And the one thing that changed my life was education, or self-education rather. I don't love the formal education system. I didn't get very good grades, but it was more like learning, listening to podcasts, watching, reading books, watching documentaries. That completely changed my life. The second important thing, it's not enough to just consume content, right? And this is a mistake that I made for 2 or 3 years. I was just consuming, but I wasn't actually taking action, right? And I think Tony Robbins, he talks about this. He was like, knowledge is useless. Knowledge is not power. Knowledge is potential power. It's only power if it is followed by action. So I was consuming content. And then about 3 years later, I was like, okay, I'm going to start taking what I'm learning and putting it into action. And so I started my first business. It didn't do very well. It lasted for about 6 months. Then I started my second business with more knowledge. And then I started my third and my fourth. And it was only when I started actually implementing what I learned, that's when my life started to change. So sure, self-education is important, but you've got to also couple that with taking action, taking risks, doing things, trying things. Very important.
Well, that's amazing. I think take actions is the only way to make it happen. It's not only learning or any faster. It's just part of the method. You are the one take actions to make a difference. Yeah. So I truly appreciate your coming here to the studio again to join the podcast, and we talk about the learning method. And I'm really happy for you to join us today. So thank you very much. And I would love to see you more in the future. I believe the audience would love to see you more in the future as well. Thank you.
Nếu đã xem đến cúng cùi thì đừng chần chờ gì nữa, hãy chia sẻ với những bạn bè đang tạo nghiệp, tạo nên sự nghiệp ha. Nếu bạn mong muốn nghe về chủ đề nào thì hãy comment cho Sunrow Podcast. Xin chào và hẹn gặp lại các bạn trong những tập tiếp theo.